The grand chamber of the Galactic Council on Selene Prime hung suspended in artificial twilight. Massive crystalline walls curved upward into a dome where an artificial sun cast pale starfire upon the tiered seating below. Banners of hundreds of member species fluttered gently in the climate-controlled breeze, their holographic nameplates pulsing with the unique signature frequencies of each civilization. Dr. Aurora Rory Lee stepped through the observer's entrance. Her crimson diplomatic sash, a stark contrast against the austere gray of her formal Earth attire. She carried no weapons, council protocol forbade them, but her mind was armed with linguistic algorithms and cultural subtleties absorbed over decades of xenolinguistic study. The weight of her mission pressed upon her shoulders, to transition humanity from provisional observer status to full council membership. After 30 years of provisional status, Earth deserved a vote. As she took her place in the observer section, a ripple of whispers moved through the assemblage. Some delegates turned compound eyes or sensory stalks in her direction. Others shifted their massive forms uncomfortably. Humans were still viewed as unpredictable, their moral zealotry a potential threat to the delicate equilibrium of interspecies relations. Rory had heard the whispers before. Too young, too impulsive, too emotional to be trusted with the fate of galaxies. "The Assembly of Voices commences," announced High Chancellor Dostin, his voice amplified by the chamber's perfect acoustics. The ancient Lyranth diplomat's form shimmered with the subtle bioluminescence of his species, each pulse a different shade of blue, indicating formal declarations. "We gather during the Trinity Conjunction to hear petitions and deliberate on matters of galactic import." Rory watched as various delegations presented their cases: border disputes, trade negotiations, appeals for technological exchange. The ritual proceeded with the measured pace of tradition until the High Arcanist of the Vishari Collective rose. The octopoid telepathic being's tentacles rippled with agitation, chromatophores flashing warning patterns across her skin. "Esteemed Council," the Vishari began, her translated voice echoing in the universal frequency. "I bring grave accusations against the Provisional Earth Delegation." Her tentacles gestured toward holographic displays, materializing around the chamber. "Humanity has violated the Non-Interference Pact, deploying unauthorized terraforming technology to Iolana Minor without council approval." The chamber erupted. Delegates chittered, hummed, and vocalized their shock. The Arkari Enclave representatives rattled their crystalline appendages in disapproval. The Tavari Sisterhood's collective consciousness rippled with uncertainty. "This reckless action threatens the stability of the Crystari Dominion border region," continued the High Arcanist. "The technology transfer occurred without oversight, without authorization, without so much as notification to this esteemed body. Earth has demonstrated contempt for our most sacred protocols." Rory felt the chamber's attention shift toward her. Hostile glares from established members burned through the dim light. She gripped the edge of her seat, mind racing through diplomatic protocols. As a provisional member, she had no right to speak unless directly addressed by the High Chancellor or summoned by vote. Then the unexpected happened. "We call for the Earth delegate to address these accusations," came a soft, melodious voice from the Tavari section. The vote flashed across the central display, a procedural anomaly. Provisional members were rarely given the floor to rebut a citizen's indictment. "The motion passes," declared High Chancellor Dostin, his tone betraying surprise. "Observer Lee, you may approach the central dais." The entire council fell silent as Rory stood from her observer's bench. A human voice was not expected in that capacity. Human delegates had never been given the floor to rebut a formal indictment. The atmosphere turned tense. Many delegations leaned forward, curious or alarmed. Her footsteps echoed in the vast space as she approached the rotating dais. It shifted to face her as she stepped onto its polished surface. Rory took a deep breath. knowing that her next words could either doom Earth's standing or forge a new path forward. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. "I acknowledge the Vishari accusation and offer context for Earth's actions on Iolana Minor." The silence intensified. Even the ambient hum of the chamber's environmental systems seemed to fade. 10 million colonists faced environmental collapse on Iolana Minor, Rory continued. Their atmospheric regenerators failed after an unexpected solar flare damaged their orbital shields. Earth acted not out of contempt for Council protocols, but out of a humanitarian imperative to prevent mass extinction. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. She could sense some delegates nodding in empathy, while others, particularly from the Arkari enclave, chittered in disapproval. "Provisional Delegate Lee," interrupted High Chancellor Dostan, his bioluminescence shifting to a formal indigo. "The Council recognizes the ethical dilemma you describe, but procedural compliance is not optional. The Non-Interference Pact exists to prevent destabilization, regardless of intent." Rory nodded respectfully, but remained standing. "With utmost respect, Chancellor, I request a temporary suspension of agenda to debate Earth's standing on this matter. The circumstances demand fuller examination than a standard reprimand." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Such a request from a provisional member was unprecedented. Senvorm Kreisch, the Zircon representative and leader of the conservative Iron Protocol bloc, rose immediately. His quadrupedal form tensed, silicate appendages clicking in agitation. "Ref. Sec. 42.7c. Article 12. Subsection I." He cited rapidly. "Provisional members cannot propose agenda modifications. I move for immediate censure of Earth's delegation and revocation of observer status." Before the Chancellor could respond, the Tavari representative spoke again. "We second the humans' request for suspension. The Treaty of Cythera, negotiated by this same human, ended decades of conflict between Earth and the Zircon Confederation. Her voice deserves consideration." The chamber erupted into chaos as factions argued procedural points. Rory stood motionless at the center, aware that every twitch of her facial muscles was being analyzed by hundreds of alien perception systems. After several minutes of deliberation, a narrow coalition of sympathetic delegates forced a vote. To Rory's amazement, it passed by a margin of 3 voices. She had been granted full speaking rights, at least for this session. "The floor remains with Provisional Delegate Lee," announced the Chancellor, his tone carrying a note of curiosity. "Speak your piece, human." Rory took a deep breath and began to chart a new course for humanity's place among the stars. In the human embassy, adjacent to Selene Prime's orbit, Elias Haddock paced the length of the strategy room. The streamlined vessel's interior blended Terran architectural motifs with Council integration points, warm wood panels alongside multi-species interface consoles, ambient sunlight simulators illuminating universal docking clamps. "She's been given speaking rights," he announced to the gathered human delegation, his weathered face tight with concern. "This is unprecedented and dangerous." Senator Yara Singh, Earth's legal counsel, adjusted her formal sari and frowned. "Our current honorary status could be revoked if she missteps. Does she understand the gravity of this moment?" "Rory knows the stakes better than anyone," Elias replied, running a hand through his silver hair. "But the Council doesn't operate on impulse or emotion. They value procedural consistency above all else." Commander Malik Reyes, the delegation's security liaison, stood by the viewport, his military posture rigid as he watched Selene Prime's curve against the backdrop of stars. "Perhaps it's time we demonstrated that Earth isn't without teeth. The Quadrant Defense Accord includes mutual protection clauses we could leverage." "Threats will only confirm their prejudices about us," interjected Dr. Leah Kimmons, the cultural liaison. Her dark eyes flashed with intensity. "Rory should appeal to cultural symbolism, Perhaps recite the opening stanza of the Treaty of Cythera in the original Zircon harmonic scale. Senvorm's people revere that treaty, even if he personally despises it. Elias shook his head. We're approaching this from the wrong angle. The Council doesn't need our legal arguments or cultural performances. They need to see that humanity brings something unique to their deliberations. Senator Singh scrolled through her data tablet. The legal precedent is clear. No provisional species has ever retained observer status after violating the Non-Interference Pact. Then perhaps, Elias said softly, we need to reframe the conversation entirely. What do you mean? Commander Reyes turned from the viewport. I mean that Rory shouldn't defend our actions under existing frameworks. She should propose a new framework altogether. Dr. Kimmon's eyes widened with understanding. You want her to challenge the Non-Interference Pact itself? That's been foundational Council doctrine for 8 centuries. Not challenge it, Elias clarified. Evolve it. The Council values stability. Yes, but they also survive by adaptation. Every great shift in galactic politics began with someone brave enough to suggest that old rules no longer served new realities. It's too risky, Senator Singh protested. We should stick to precedent, offer reparations, accept a censure, and move on. Live to fight another day. Commander Reyes laughed without humor. There won't be another day if they expel us. Half the rimward colonies depend on Council trade routes for survival. A communications chime interrupted their debate. A holographic projection of Rory appeared in the center of the room. I've been granted full speaking privileges, she said, her image flickering slightly. But Senvorm is mobilizing the Iron Protocol bloc against us. I need a strategy that breaks their unified front. Elias stepped forward. We've been discussing options. Multiple and contradictory ones, Commander Reyes interjected. I need something concrete, Rory pressed. The chamber reconvenes in 20 minutes. Propose a joint inquiry, Elias suggested. Offer the Council a role in reviewing our intervention on Iolana Minor. Forfeit nothing, warned Commander Reyes. Once we start surrendering sovereignty, there's no end to their demands. Senator Singh raised a hand. Offer conditional oversight. Earth maintains technical control but accepts Council ethical reviews. And mention the quantum anomaly, Dr. Kimmons added quietly. The room fell silent. We agreed that information was classified, Senator Singh said carefully. Perhaps it's time for declassification, Dr. Kimmons countered. If the Council knew what we were really trying to contain. Rory's holographic eyes widened. Are you suggesting I reveal Project Lighthouse? That's beyond my authority. I'll authorize it, Commander Reyes said firmly. As Earth Defense Representative, I can declassify in emergency situations. This qualifies. The anomaly data is complex, Rory objected. I can't explain quantum instability to 100 different species in 20 minutes. You don't need to explain the science, Elias said. Just the stakes. Make them understand that our actions on Iolana Minor weren't just about saving colonists. They were about building a shield against something that threatens us all. Rory's hologram flickered as she considered the implications. If I reveal this, there's no going back. Earth will be exposed. Earth is already exposed, Senator Singh said softly. At least this way. We control the narrative. Very well, Rory nodded. Send me the declassified briefing. I'll do what I can. As her hologram faded, Elias turned to the others. Now we wait, and hope the Council values truth over tradition. Rory returned to the Council chamber with a multifaceted approach forming in her mind. The Grand Hall had reconfigured itself during the recess. The observers' benches had been pulled back, creating a larger central space where the dais now floated. The artificial sun overhead had brightened slightly, casting more definitive shadows across the tiered seating. As she took her position, she noticed subtle shifts in the chamber's dynamics. The Vishari delegation had moved closer to the Tavari, tentacles and energy fields occasionally intermingling in what she recognized as informal consultation. The Arcari Enclave representatives had clustered tightly together, their crystalline forms refracting light in patterns of suspicion. Most concerning was Senvorm Krish. The Zircon delegate had positioned himself directly opposite her position, his silicate form gleaming under the artificial light. He was surrounded by representatives from his Iron Protocol bloc, ultra-conservative members from the Arcari, Krytelian, and several minor races. They chittered and communicated in encrypted frequencies, occasionally glancing toward Rory with compound eyes or sensory appendages. High Chancellor Dostan's bioluminescence shifted to formal azure as he reopened the session. Provisional Delegate Lee will now address the Council regarding Earth's actions on Iolana Minor. Rory stepped forward, feeling the weight of Earth's future on her shoulders. Esteemed Council, I propose a public inquiry, led jointly by the Council's legal tribunal and human-affiliated investigators, to review all data concerning the Iolana Minor intervention. Murmurs rippled through the assembly, some of surprise, others of grudging approval. Earth is prepared to forfeit unapproved terraforming modules unless the Council authorizes conditional oversight, she continued. We seek to frame our actions as remedy rather than defiance. Senvorm immediately rose, his silicate appendages clicking in agitation. The human attempts to reframe a clear violation as a negotiating position. This is precisely the moral relativism that makes their species unsuitable for Council membership. High Arcanist Vranalora of the Vishari Collective extended a tentacle toward the central display. The Vishari acknowledge Earth's willingness for transparency. However, the severity of the violation cannot be dismissed by procedural accommodation. I agree, Rory said, surprising the assembly. The severity cannot be dismissed, which is why I am authorized to reveal information previously classified by Earth Central Command. A ripple of anticipation moved through the chamber. Our intervention on Iolana Minor was not merely a humanitarian effort to save colonists, Rory stated clearly. It was the initial deployment of a technology designed to address a greater threat, one that affects all Council space. She gestured to the central display, and with Commander Reyes's clearance codes, accessed the classified data stream. A holographic representation materialized in the chamber center, a swirling, fractal pattern of energy, its quantum states shifting unpredictably between configurations. This is a quantum anomaly discovered by Earth scientists in the Vesper Quadrant, Rory explained. It defies conventional physics, consuming matter and energy while expanding at an exponential rate. Our projections indicate it will reach Council space within 3 standard years. The chamber erupted in shock and disbelief. Some delegates demanded verification. Others called for immediate adjournment. Senvorm's voice cut through the chaos. Convenient timing for such a revelation. The human invents a crisis to justify lawlessness. The data is not fabricated, Rory countered firmly. Your own long-range sensors have detected unusual energy signatures from the Vesper Quadrant. Your scientists dismissed them as background radiation, but they are early indicators of the anomaly's expansion. High Chancellor Dostan raised his appendages for silence. These are extraordinary claims requiring extraordinary evidence. The Council must verify this independently. I welcome verification, Rory agreed. However, time is critical. The terraforming technology deployed to Iolana Minor was adapted to create a planetary shield capable of dampening the anomaly's quantum fluctuations. If the anomaly is not contained, it will spread like a plague across dozens of inhabited worlds. The High Arcanist's tentacles writhed in agitation. If such a threat exists, why did Earth not bring this to the Council immediately? Because we needed proof of concept before causing galactic panic, Rory answered honestly. The shield on Iolana Minor was our prototype. We intended to present our findings to the Council once we confirmed its effectiveness. Senvorm clicked his appendages dismissively. This is misdirection, a fabricated crisis to excuse Earth's technological expansionism. "If I may," interrupted a new voice. A Zircon scientist rose from the lower tiers, Captain Celine Vera, the science attaché. "I have analyzed the preliminary data stream. The quantum signatures match anomalous readings. Our deep space arrays detected 18 cycles ago. We classified them as low priority, but they bear striking similarities to the patterns displayed here." Senvorm turned on his fellow Zircon, silicate appendages clicking in agitation. "You overstep your authority, science attaché." "I speak scientific truth," Vara replied firmly, "as is my duty to the Council." The chamber fell into heated debate. Delegates formed clusters, comparing data, arguing interpretations. Rory stood at the center, watching as the political landscape shifted beneath her feet. Eventually, High Chancellor Dostan raised his appendages for attention. "This matter requires immediate investigation. I propose an emergency crisis conclave to assess this quantum anomaly rather than proceeding with censure proceedings against Earth." "Objection!" Senvorm's voice rang out. "We cannot allow this distraction to derail justice. The non-interference pact was violated. Earth must be held accountable." "And it will be," the Chancellor assured him. "Once we have determined the validity of this threat, if Earth has fabricated this crisis, the consequences will be severe. If not, then we face a greater concern than regulatory violations." The vote was called. By a narrow margin, the Council approved the Chancellor's proposal. An emergency crisis conclave would convene immediately to assess the quantum anomaly. As the session adjourned, Rory felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. She had averted immediate censure, but the real challenge was just beginning. Earth's technology was now the only apparent solution to a galaxy-wide threat, and that made it both valuable and dangerous in the complex politics of the Council. Vra Nalora approached as delegates filed out of the chamber. "Your mind holds more secrets," the Vishari telepathic stated, her tentacles undulating gently. "I sense your conviction, but also your fear." Rory met the alien's compound eyes steadily. "I fear failure, High Arcanist. Millions of lives depend on cooperation that centuries of distrust make difficult." "Truth underpins forgiveness," the Vishari replied, a tentacle briefly touching Rory's shoulder. "But truth must be complete to heal completely." As the Vishari glided away, Rory couldn't shake the feeling that the telepathic being had glimpsed something in her mind, something even she wasn't fully aware of yet. The tribunal amphitheater lay 2 kilometers beneath the Grand Council chamber. Unlike the ornate hall above, this space was stark and functional, its walls displaying shifting fractal patterns to denote legal phases. The floor had reconfigured into a courtroom configuration, with the central platform serving as both witness stand and evidence display. Rory stood at the center, surrounded by representatives from 26 council species, who formed the hastily assembled Anomaly Defense Consortium, ADC. Holographic displays circled the chamber, showing real-time data from deep space observatories, tracking the quantum anomaly's expansion. "The pattern is unmistakable," Captain Celine Vera explained, her Zircon appendages manipulating the 3-dimensional display. "The anomaly consumes matter and energy, incorporating them into its quantum lattice. Each consumption event accelerates its growth exponentially." "And Earth's terraforming shields can contain this?" asked a representative from the Tovari Sisterhood, her energy field pulsating with concern. "Not in their current configuration," Rory admitted. "The shields were designed to stabilize planetary atmospheres. We need to adapt them into a quantum damping matrix that can neutralize the anomaly's expansion. Such adaptation requires resources beyond Earth's capacity," noted High Chancellor Dostan. "Precisely why we need Council cooperation," Rory agreed. "Earth provides the shield technology. Vishari telepathic navigation can guide ships close enough to deploy it. Tovari metaphysical stabilization fields can prevent quantum interference during implementation. "And the Zircon Confederation?" asked Captain Vera. Senvorm Krish entered the amphitheater, his silicate form rigid with formality. "The Zircon will observe, but not participate. We maintain that this crisis is manufactured to excuse Earth's violations." Captain Vara's appendages clicked in disagreement. "The science is clear, Counselor. This threat is real and imminent." "Science can be manipulated," Senvorm replied coldly, "especially when wielded by those with political agendas." Despite Senvorm's objections, the ADC began formulating a response plan. Earth would share its nanocarbon matrix shield technology. The Vishari would provide telepathic navigators capable of guiding ships through the anomaly's distortion field. The Tavari would contribute metaphysical stabilization technology to prevent quantum flux during deployment. As the technical discussions proceeded, Rory noticed a subtle shift in the chamber's energy. Several junior delegates were receiving communications, their expressions or postures changing in response to information Rory couldn't access. She caught Dr. Kimmon's eye across the room and gestured discreetly. The cultural liaison made her way to Rory's side. "Something's happening," Rory whispered. "There's information circulating that we're not privy to." Dr. Kimmons nodded almost imperceptibly. "The embassy's monitoring unusual communication patterns. Senvorm has been in contact with delegates who aren't part of his usual coalition." "He's trying to rebuild support," Rory realized. "Even with the anomaly threat, he won't abandon his effort to expel us." "It's worse than that," Dr. Kimmons murmured. "Commander Reyes intercepted fragments of encrypted communication. There may be plans to sabotage the ADC efforts." Before Rory could respond, High Chancellor Dostan called for the Assembly's attention. "The Anomaly Defense Consortium will proceed immediately," he announced. "Earth's Provisional Delegate Lee will coordinate our response as interim voting member." Senvorm's silicate form vibrated with barely contained outrage. "This is unprecedented. A provisional member cannot be elevated without full council vote. Emergency protocols allow for temporary appointments during crisis situations," the Chancellor replied calmly. "Once the crisis is resolved, normal procedures will resume, including any pending disciplinary matters regarding Earth's earlier actions." Senvorm's appendages clicked rapidly, a zircon expression of extreme disapproval, but he offered no further objection. The ADC formalized its structure, with Rory as coordinator, Vranalora as telepathic liaison, and representatives from 7 other species in supporting roles. Resources were allocated. Earth would provide nanocarbon matrix shields from its reserves. Vishari telepaths would offer navigation assistance. Tavari metaphysical engineers would contribute stabilization fields. As the session concluded, Captain Vara approached Rory privately. "Counselor Krish will not abandon his opposition," she warned, her voice lowered to avoid detection. "He has allies within the Stellar Forge facility who may interfere with the construction of quantum stabilizers." "Why are you telling me this?" Rory asked. "You risk much by opposing your own counselor." The Zircon scientist's compound eyes fixed on Rory. "Because unlike Senvorm, I have studied your species extensively. Humans possess a quality my people lack: adaptive creativity in crisis. That quality may save us all." "Thank you for the warning," Rory said sincerely. "Do not thank me," Captain Vera replied. "Prove me right." Commander Reyes led a small security team through the twisting corridors of Selene Prime's Stellar Forge facility. The massive installation, built into the planetoid's northern hemisphere, housed the manufacturing capabilities needed to construct the quantum stabilizers for the anomaly containment effort. "Motion sensors detect movement in Junction 42B, reported his second-in-command, Lieutenant Kwan. "Identified as Krytelian physiological signatures." "Krytelians shouldn't be in that sector," Reyes muttered, checking the layout on his tactical display. "That's where the primary resonance chambers are being calibrated." They moved quietly through the facility's industrial corridors, their adaptive camouflage suits blending with the metallic surroundings. The Stellar Forge hummed with activity, as engineers from a dozen species worked to modify Earth's terraforming technology into quantum stabilizers. As they approached Junction 42B, Reyes signaled for the team to hold position. Ahead, 3 Krytelian figures were attaching devices to the junction's main power conduits. Their chitinous exoskeletons gleamed under the emergency lighting. "Explosive devices," Lieutenant Quan whispered, her scanner displaying the molecular composition. "Plasma fusion detonators with quantum acceleration triggers. Powerful enough to destroy the entire resonance chamber," Reyes concluded grimly, "and kill everyone inside." He opened a secure channel to Rory. "We have confirmation of sabotage attempt at the Stellar Forge. 3 Krytelians planting explosives at Junction 42B, requesting permission to intervene." Rory's voice came back immediately. "Can you disable the devices without confrontation?" "Negative. They're still in the process of installation. We need to stop them now." A moment of silence. Then, "Proceed with minimum force. We need prisoners who can identify who gave the orders." "Understood." Reyes closed the channel and turned to his team. "Non-lethal takedown. Priority is securing the explosives and capturing the saboteurs." The team moved with practiced efficiency. Neural disruptors fired in precise sequence, temporarily overloading the Krytelians' nervous systems. 2 dropped immediately. The third managed to trigger an alarm before collapsing. "Secure the devices," Reyes ordered, as warning klaxons began to sound throughout the facility. "Quan, get a containment field around those detonators." The lieutenant worked quickly, establishing a quantum dampening field around the explosives. "Field stable. But these are sophisticated devices. They're linked to remote triggers. Can you trace the signal?" "Trying, but it's bouncing through multiple relays." A security detail of mixed species rounded the corner. Weapons drawn. Their leader, a Tavari energy being, pulsed with aggressive patterns. "Stand down, Earth forces," the Tavari commanded. "You have violated security protocols." "We just prevented your facility from being destroyed," Reyes countered, gesturing to the unconscious Krytelians and the explosive devices. These saboteurs were planting quantum-accelerated bombs at a critical junction. The Tavari's energy field shifted to a scanning configuration, then pulsed with alarm. "These are indeed unauthorized explosive devices. Who sent you here?" "Provisional Delegate Lee authorized our presence after receiving intelligence about possible sabotage." Before the Tavari could respond, an explosion rocked the facility, not from the secured devices, but from somewhere deeper in the complex. "Secondary team," Reyes realized. "They must have had backup operatives." The facility's communication system activated. "Attention all personnel. Resonance Chamber 3 has been compromised. Casualties reported. Emergency protocols are now in effect." The Tavari security chief's energy field darkened with distress. That chamber housed council technicians, calibrating the quantum harmonics. "How many?" Reyes asked quietly. 17, including juvenile apprentices." Reyes closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, his expression was grim. This wasn't just sabotage. It was meant to turn the council against us, make it look like human technology killed council citizens. "I must report this to the High Chancellor," the Tavari stated. "Report all of it," Reyes insisted, "including that Earth security prevented a much larger catastrophe." As the Tavari departed, Lieutenant Quan approached. "Sir, I've partially traced the detonation signal. It bounced through 7 relays, but the origination point was within the council chamber itself." Reyes activated his secure channel again. "Rory, we have a serious problem. The sabotage goes higher than we thought, all the way to the council chamber." In the Grand Council chamber, chaos erupted as news of the Stellar Forge attack spread. Delegates demanded explanations, security forces mobilized, and accusations flew freely. Rory found herself at the center of the storm, trying to maintain order while processing Commander Reyes' disturbing report. "Earth security forces prevented a major explosion," she announced to the assembled delegates. However, a secondary device detonated in Resonance Chamber 3. We have confirmed casualties. Convenient that Earth forces were positioned to play hero, Senvorm declared, his silicate form vibrating with barely contained rage. Perhaps because they knew exactly where to look. We had intelligence about a potential threat, Rory acknowledged, which we acted upon to save lives. After your unauthorized intervention on Iolana Minor, can any species truly trust Earth's intelligence? Senvorm challenged. For all we know, this was a false flag operation to cement your position as saviors of the Council. Murmurs of both agreement and protest rippled through the chamber. Rory felt a telepathic brush against her mind, Vranalora attempting to gauge her sincerity. High Chancellor, Rory addressed Dostan directly. I formally request a telepathic truth assessment before the full Council. Let the Vishari Collective verify my knowledge of these events. The chamber fell silent. Requesting telepathic evaluation was rare and risky. The process exposed not just conscious thoughts, but subconscious motivations, memories, and emotions. Few delegates willingly subjected themselves to such scrutiny. Senvorm's appendages clicked rapidly. A theatrical gesture. The human knows that telepathic assessment is not admissible in Council proceedings. I'm not seeking legal admission, Rory clarified. I'm seeking truth. If Earth is behind this sabotage, I will resign immediately and submit to Council justice. If not, perhaps we can focus on the real threat, both the saboteurs and the quantum anomaly they seek to let expand unchecked. High Chancellor Dostan's bioluminescence shifted thoughtfully. The Vishari Collective may conduct a limited assessment if both parties consent. Vranalora's tentacles undulated in formal acknowledgement. We are willing. All eyes turned to Senvorm. If he refused to allow the assessment, he would appear to be hiding something. If he consented, he risked exposure if he was indeed connected to the sabotage. I have nothing to hide, he declared finally. Let the telepath search for truth. Vranalora approached the central dais, where Rory stood, her tentacles extended, gently touching Rory's temples. Open your mind, human. Show us what you know of the Stellar Forge attack. Rory closed her eyes, focusing on the intelligence reports, Commander Rhea's communications, and her own actions in response. She felt the Vishari's consciousness brush against hers, sifting through her memories with surprising gentleness. After several minutes, Vranalora withdrew. The human speaks truth. She had intelligence about a potential attack, but no knowledge of who was behind it. She acted to prevent loss of life. Before Rory could feel relief, the High Arcanist turned to Senvorm. Now you, Counselor. Senvorm's silicate form stiffened. I agreed to allow assessment of the human's claims, not to submit myself to examination. That was not the agreement as understood by this council. High Chancellor Dostan stated firmly. Both parties consented to assessment. I will not allow telepathic invasion. Senvorm's appendages clicked in agitation. It violates Zircon autonomy protocols. What are you afraid we will find, Counselor? Vranalora asked, her tentacles shifting to display patterns of suspicion. Senvorm backed away from the dais. This is a conspiracy to undermine the Iron Protocol block. I will not participate further in this charade. He turned to his allies. We withdraw from these proceedings. As Senvorm and his supporters began to exit, Captain Celine Vara stepped forward. High Chancellor, I request emergency speaking privileges as Zircon Science Attaché. Granted, Dostan replied immediately. The Science Directorate has completed analysis of the detonation signal from the Stellar Forge attack, Vera announced. The transmission originated from a Council communication node, registered to the Iron Protocol block's private network. The chamber erupted once more. Senvorm froze in the exit archway, his silicate form rigid, with what Rory recognized as Zircon expressions of shock and rage. Lies, he declared. The Science Directorate oversteps its authority. This is political manipulation. Data cannot be manipulated when verified through 3 independent quantum-secured channels. Captain Vera replied calmly. The evidence is conclusive. Counselor. Senvorm's appendages began to vibrate at increasing frequency, a warning sign that Rory had studied in xenobiology courses. Zircon physiology included internal energy storage that, when agitated, could release destructive pulses. Security to the chamber, High Chancellor Dostan ordered quietly. You would believe a junior scientist over a High Counselor? Senvorm's voice had taken on a harmonic quality that made Rory's skin crawl. This council has lost all sense of order. If you will not enforce our most sacred protocols, then there is no council worth preserving. With shocking speed, Senvorm extracted a device from his ceremonial vestments. I will have my justice. Security forces rushed forward, but they were too late. Senvorm activated the device, not a weapon as many feared, but a communication transmitter. Throughout the chamber, hidden devices activated simultaneously, disabling the suppression fields that prevented unauthorized technology from functioning. Alarms blared as the chamber's security systems detected the breach. High Chancellor Dostan's bioluminescence flashed emergency patterns. Evacuate the chamber. Security protocols have been compromised. As delegates rushed toward exits, Senvorm's voice cut through the chaos. Too late. The facility's containment fields are collapsing. Without them, Selene Prime's orbit will decay within hours. The Council has failed. Now it will fall. Before anyone could reach him, Vranalora extended her tentacles, establishing a telepathic hold on the Zircon Counselor. Senvorm froze, his silicate form vibrating in resistance. I cannot hold him long, the High Arcanist warned. His mind is shielded. Rory rushed to a control panel, accessing emergency systems. The containment field generators are shutting down sequentially. He's triggered a cascade failure. Can it be stopped? High Chancellor Dostan asked, maintaining remarkable calm despite the crisis. Not from here, Rory replied. The central controls have been locked out. We need to access the field generators directly. Commander Rhea's voice came through her communication device. We're monitoring from the Stellar Forge. Orbital decay has already begun. Estimate 3 hours until catastrophic failure. The ADC fleet, Rory realized. If we can't stabilize Selene Prime, we need to evacuate and proceed with the anomaly containment mission. Otherwise, all of this was for nothing. High Chancellor Dostan's bioluminescence shifted to a deep purple, a color Rory had never seen in Lyranth communication patterns. Agreed. The council chamber is compromised, but our purpose is not. I hereby authorize emergency evacuation protocols and continuation of the Anomaly Defense Consortium mission. As security forces took Senvorm into custody, Rory organized the evacuation. The ADC fleet, already assembled in Selene Prime's orbit, began taking on delegates and essential personnel. Priority was given to those with knowledge or skills needed for the anomaly containment effort. Amid the controlled chaos, Vranalora approached Rory. His mind was indeed shielded, but I glimpsed fragments. Senvorm believes the quantum anomaly is a natural cleansing, a cosmic filter to remove species unworthy of survival. That's insane, Rory replied. The anomaly will consume everything in its path, including Zircon worlds. Zealotry rarely concerns itself with consistency, the High Arcanist observed. He would rather see the galaxy burn than evolve beyond the structures he venerates. As the last essential personnel boarded the fleet, Rory took a final look at the council chamber through the viewports of the command ship. Selene Prime's orbit was already visibly decaying, the artificial world slowly spiraling toward the neutron star it had orbited for millennia. The oldest continuous seat of galactic governance, High Chancellor Dostan said quietly, joining her at the viewport. 8,000 years of history, soon to be stardust. We'll build something new, Rory promised. something that honors tradition but embraces adaptation. The Chancellor's bioluminescence shifted to a gentle blue. Perhaps that is why your species was destined to join us. Human. You understand both the value of preservation and the necessity of change. The fleet disengaged from Selene Prime's dying orbit, setting course for the quantum anomaly's epicenter in the Vesper Quadrant. Ahead lay an even greater challenge, one that would determine whether the Council's fall marked an end or a new beginning for galactic civilization. The combined ADC fleet entered the quantum anomaly's epicenter region 3 days later. From the command deck of the flagship Resilient Dawn, Rory watched as the sensors displayed the approaching phenomenon. It defied conventional description, a swirling, fractal pattern of energy whose quantum states shifted unpredictably between configurations. The holographic display rendered it as a cosmic rose in perpetual bloom, its petals of gravity tearing at reality. Sensors detect extreme gravitational distortion, reported a Tavari navigator, her energy form pulsating with tension. Standard navigation systems are failing. Activate Vishari telepathic guidance, Rory ordered. In the navigation chamber below, a team of Vishari telepaths linked minds, creating a collective consciousness capable of perceiving pathways through the quantum distortions. Their tentacles intertwined, chromatophores flashing in synchronized patterns as they extended their awareness beyond the ship. Pathways identified, Vranalora announced, her consciousness linked to the telepathic network. Transmitting coordinates to the fleet, the ships adjusted their approach, following the barely perceptible safe channels through the quantum storm. Around them, space itself seemed to warp and twist. Stars appeared to move, their light bent by gravity wells that shouldn't exist. Matter condensed and dispersed in impossible patterns. This is unlike anything in Council records, Captain Vera observed, her zircon sensory appendages clicking in scientific fascination. The quantum states are evolving faster than our models predicted. Can the dampening matrix still work? Rory asked, concern evident in her voice. In theory, yes, the zircon scientist replied. But we need to deploy it closer to the epicenter than originally planned. The anomaly's growth has accelerated. Commander Reyes studied the tactical display. That puts the deployment ships at extreme risk. The gravitational shear could tear them apart before they can activate the matrix. We need volunteers, Rory said quietly. This mission just became a potential one-way trip. To her surprise, representatives from multiple species stepped forward. A Vishari navigator, a Tavari engineer, 2 Zircon technicians from Captain Vera's team, and 3 human specialists from Earth's contingent. We were prepared for this possibility, said one of the human volunteers, a quantum engineer named Dr. Hassan. The matrix needs to be calibrated on site to match the anomaly's specific frequency. Automated deployment won't work. Rory nodded, a lump forming in her throat. Prepare the deployment vessels. We'll provide maximum shielding and standby extraction teams, but we understand the risks, Dr. Hassan said simply. This is bigger than any one species or individual. As the volunteers prepared, Rory conferred with the remaining ADC leadership. The plan was adjusted. 3 small vessels would approach the anomaly's core, each carrying components of the quantum damping matrix. Once in position, they would synchronize the devices, creating a resonance field that would collapse the anomaly into a stabilized micro-black hole, safely contained within an antimatter trap. The window for synchronization will be extremely brief, Captain Vera warned. If any vessel misses the timing, the matrix will fail, and the feedback could accelerate the anomaly's expansion. Our telepaths will maintain contact with each vessel, Vranalora assured them. We will ensure synchronization. The deployment vessels launched, small and nimble compared to the capital ships of the main fleet. Rory watched from the command deck as they navigated the treacherous approach, buffeted by gravitational waves that made the ships appear to stretch and compress in impossible ways. Deployment Team Alpha has reached position, reported the communications officer. Quantum sensors active, matrix component online. Team Beta reporting gravitational shear exceeding safety parameters, came another report. Hull integrity at 64% but holding. Team Gamma experiencing temporal fluctuation. A third voice announced. Local time dilation detected, compensating with synchronization protocols. Rory gripped the edge of the tactical display. Knuckles, white with tension. Everything depended on perfect coordination between three vessels being torn at by forces that defied normal physics. All teams in final position, Commander Reyes confirmed. Matrix components aligned and powered, awaiting synchronization command. Vran Alora's tentacles rippled with concentration as she maintained telepathic contact with the deployment teams. Minds aligned, ready for activation on my mark. The command deck fell silent. Even the ambient hum of the ship's systems seemed to fade as everyone focused on the critical moment. Synchronize! Now! The three vessels activated their matrix components simultaneously. On the display, energy patterns surged between them, forming a triangular configuration that pulsed with increasing intensity. The anomaly's fractal patterns began to shift, its wild expansions contracting inward as the quantum damping matrix imposed order on chaos. Anomaly collapse initiated, Captain Vera reported, her appendages clicking in rapid scientific notation. Quantum states stabilizing within predicted parameters. For a moment, it seemed the plan was working perfectly. Then, alarms blared across the command deck. "Gravitational surge detected," shouted a sensor operator. "The anomaly is fighting back." On the display, the deployment vessels shuddered under immense strain. Team Beta's ship began to break apart, hull plates tearing away into the quantum maelstrom. Beta's matrix component is destabilizing, Captain Vara warned. Without it, the containment will fail. "Can we send a replacement?" Rory asked desperately. "No time," Commander Reyes replied grimly. "The collapse sequence has already begun." Over the communication channel, they heard Dr. Hassan's voice from Team Gamma. "We're detecting the instability. Gamma can compensate by increasing our matrix output to cover Beta's sector." "That would overload your systems," Captain Vera objected. "Your containment field wouldn't hold." "It doesn't need to hold forever," Dr. Hassan replied calmly. "Just long enough to complete the collapse." Before anyone could object, Team Gamma's vessel adjusted position, its engines flaring as it maneuvered to cover the gap left by Beta's failing matrix. The ship's power signatures spiked dangerously as it channeled more energy than it was designed to handle. "Anomaly collapse accelerating," reported Captain Vera. "Quantum states converging towards singularity." On the display, they watched as Team Gamma's vessel began to break up under the strain. Yet, somehow, its matrix component remained functional, the crew manually adjusting parameters even as their ship disintegrated around them. "Team Alpha reporting critical system failures," came another voice. "Matrix holding but vessel integrity failing." "Extraction teams, stand by," Commander Reyes ordered, though everyone knew rescue would be impossible this close to the collapsing anomaly. The command deck watched in stunned silence as the deployment vessels sacrificed themselves to complete the mission. One by one, they broke apart, consumed by the forces they were working to contain. Yet their matrix components continued functioning just long enough to complete the anomaly's collapse. "Final phase initiated," Captain Vara announced, her voice subdued. "Anomaly compressing to singularity state." The swirling fractal patterns on the display contracted inward, collapsing into an infinitesimal point of intense energy. For a heartbeat, it flared with the brightness of 1,000 suns, then vanished, leaving behind a stable micro-black hole safely contained within the antimatter trap. "Containment successful," Captain Vara confirmed after several tense moments of analysis. "The anomaly has been neutralized." No one cheered. The victory had come at too high a cost. 23 lives, Vishari, Tovari, Zircon, and Human, had been lost in the final deployment. Their sacrifice had saved countless billions across the galaxy. But that knowledge did little to ease the weight of grief that settled over the command deck. High Chancellor Dostan's bioluminescence shifted to a solemn indigo. Let it be recorded in the Council archives that these beings gave their lives in service to all sentient species. Their names will be remembered as long as our civilizations endure. Rory nodded, unable to speak past the tightness in her throat. Dr. Hassan had been a friend, a brilliant scientist who had believed in cooperation between species when many on Earth still viewed the Council with suspicion. Now, he and the others were gone, their atoms scattered across the quantum void they had given their lives to contain. As the fleet prepared to return to Council space, though with Selene Prime gone, that term had lost some of its meaning. Rory knew that the political battle was far from over. Senvorm's betrayal had shaken the foundations of Council authority, and Earth's role in both the crisis and its resolution remained contentious. But something fundamental had changed. In the face of extinction, species that had viewed each other with suspicion had worked together, sacrificed together. That bond, forged in the quantum fire of near annihilation, might prove stronger than the political structures it had temporarily replaced. 2 weeks later, the surviving Council members convened aboard the Tavari sanctuary ship, Harmonic Confluence. The vessel's central chamber had been reconfigured to resemble the lost Council Hall on Selene Prime, though on a smaller scale. Banners of member species hung from the curved walls, their holographic nameplates pulsing with familiar signatures. Rory stood at the center of the chamber, the crimson lotus insignia of Earth prominent on her diplomatic sash. The artificial lighting cast her shadow long across the polished floor as she addressed the assembled delegates. "The quantum anomaly has been contained," she stated, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "But its legacy forces us to confront uncomfortable truths. Our rigid adherence to procedure nearly prevented us from responding to an existential threat. Our distrust of unconventional methods almost doomed us all." Senvorm was conspicuously absent, confined to a secure facility pending trial for his actions. His iron protocol block had fractured, with many former allies distancing themselves from his extremism. Earth's intervention on Iolana Minor violated the letter of the Non-Interference Pact, Rory acknowledged. But it also demonstrated the necessity of flexible, compassionate governance. When protocols become more important than the lives they were designed to protect, they no longer serve their purpose. She gestured to the display at the chamber's center, which showed the modified terraforming technology that had saved the galaxy. Humanity's unconventional methods, though legally ambiguous, proved essential to our collective survival. "I propose a formal amendment to the Non-Interference Pact, allowing for emergency intervention when a multi-system threat emerges." Murmurs rippled through the assembly, some supportive, others skeptical. High Chancellor Dostan's bioluminescence shifted to formal azure. "The Council will consider Provisional Delegate Lee's proposal. Given recent events, there is wisdom in reassessing our most fundamental doctrines." Captain Vara, now serving as acting representative of the Zircon Confederation, clicked her appendages in a pattern of tentative agreement. "The Science Directorate supports this amendment. Rigid adherence to outdated protocols in the face of evolving threats is neither logical nor sustainable." The debate continued for hours, with delegates arguing points of legal precedent, ethical obligation, and practical necessity. Rory defended her position with the same quiet determination that had characterized her approach to the anomaly crisis. When challenged, she referred not to abstract principles, but to specific lives saved and lost during recent events. Finally, High Chancellor Dostan called for a vote. "On the matter of amending the Non-Interference Pact to include emergency intervention protocols, how stands the Council?" The votes appeared on the central display. Vishari and Tavari supported the amendment. Most Zircon and Arkari abstained, rather than vote yes. A handful of minor species opposed it. When the tally completed, the amendment had passed by a narrow margin, The amendment is ratified, the Chancellor declared. Now, to the matter of Earth's provisional status. Senvorm's motion to strip Earth's observer status came to vote next. Despite his absence, the proposal had enough procedural momentum to require formal consideration. Rory stood quietly as her species' fate was decided by alien delegates whose cultures and values differed vastly from her own. The vote was even closer than the previous one. When the final tally appeared, Earth had retained its status by a single vote. More significantly, Rory's position as a full council member was confirmed, the first human to hold such authority in the history of galactic politics. As the session concluded, delegates filed out of the chamber, already forming new alliances and strategies for the uncertain future ahead. The loss of Selene Prime had destabilized traditional power structures, creating opportunities for both cooperation and conflict. Rory remained alone at the human delegate dais, gazing at the grand flags of allied species. She reflected on the cost: countless lives lost during crisis mitigation, ongoing distrust from conservative blocs, but also on the precedent set. A species once marginalized now sat at the council's highest table. A small, Vishari youth approached, having apparently slipped away from its guardian. The juvenile's tentacles moved in patterns of curiosity as it examined the human delegate. Rory smiled and extended her hand in greeting, a human gesture the young Vishari would not recognize. To her surprise, the child extended a tentacle in response, gently touching her fingertips in a moment of cross-species connection. The chamber's lighting dimmed as environmental systems adjusted for the next shift. The seats emptied, but the banners fluttered as if breathing, suggesting that the story of human influence on the council had only just begun. High Arcanist Vra Nalora appeared at the chamber entrance, presumably searching for the wandering juvenile. She observed the interaction without interrupting, her chromatophores displaying patterns of thoughtful consideration. "It is said among my people," she commented, as the young Vishari rejoined her, "that children recognize truth before adults learn to fear it." Her tentacles gestured toward the empty council seats. "Perhaps that is why our youngest members often see potential where our oldest see only danger." "Do you believe the council made the right decision today?" Rory asked. "I believe the council made a necessary decision," the High Arcanist replied. "Whether it was right will be determined by what we all, do with the opportunity it provides." As Rory prepared to leave the chamber, Vra Nalora added, "When a human first sat on the Galactic Council, the room fell silent with shock and apprehension. Now, when you speak, the silence comes from something else entirely." "What's that?" Rory asked. "Recognition," the Vishari answered simply. "That the universe is larger and stranger than any single species' understanding of it, and that survival depends not on rigid adherence to the familiar, but on embracing the unknown with both wisdom and courage." Together, they exited the council chamber, stepping into a future where humanity's voice would help shape the destiny of 1,000 worlds. The banners of allied species continued their gentle movement behind them, like the breathing of a newborn galaxy finding its rhythm among the stars.